we've talked about this before too, which is that if everybody's cars worked the way they thought they were going to work when they showed up, every record would fall every race.
I'm feeling attacked.
Welcome to So You Think Your Car is Fast, where we dive into the world of high-end, fast cars and explore what it truly means to have a fast car. From the latest in supercar technology to the mechanics that make these machines go, we'll separate fact from fiction and uncover the misconceptions about speed and power that exist in the minds of the general public. Join us as we put the pedal to the metal and discover what it takes to have a car that truly lives up to the title of fast.
Welcome back, boys. We're live Wednesday after Shift Sector, Kansas, and we have a lot to talk about.
What if I don't want to talk about it anymore?
Are you done talking?
I mean, do you know how many messages I've gotten on social media that I'm just like, oh, I don't want to.
So, how'd it go this weekend? So, what happened this weekend?
What was your fastest speed? What's wrong with it? It's hard. It's just hard to explain when someone's not there or kind of far removed from the actual issue, you know?
Well, what you should do is make a write-up, post it, and when you get questions, say, hey, refer to last post.
I'm glad you asked. See attached, and then paperclip it, attach.
Glad you asked.
Well, you did better than me. I was racing my imaginary car in the imaginary half mile. It was very fast, though.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, what was your imaginary trap speed?
I went 216.
Holy crap.
Wow.
That's I think that's a record. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that imaginary trophy heavy?
Yeah, it weighed my mind down the whole way back. But
Yeah. So, wow. It was a good weekend, huh? I mean, overall, it was good because we got to see everybody again, you know.
Well,
I think it's like anything, right? Like you work towards something, and then when there's a little setback, you hate it for a minute, and then you find yourself loving it anyway, and that's kind of the story of cars.
Well, we had a new addition to the team. We had Jared from BBI, who was there on the keyboards for us. That was, I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was great. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, I like Jared. I don't know if he likes me, but
you got to be nicer to Jared.
Oh
no, he's great.
I was nice to Jared, but he's probably like, man, this Taylor guy, he's just full of complaints.
I know.
That's what we needed.
I didn't mean to complain. I was just like, here, let me tell you my story in case that helps you come up with any ideas while you're getting my car to run slower than it should have or has ever really.
I said, hey, Jared, you going to Indy? He's like, yeah, but is Taylor going?
Taylor going? Did that really happen?
No.
Okay.
No,
I was sitting in the RV because I was not feeling very well for part of it, which really sucked. And but Jared kept coming in, and I kept talking to him about your guys' stuff, and it was good to have him out there because, Wayne is so preoccupied with 9 other cars, and we it's really hard to manage racing and manage fuel, as it turns out. And manage everything.
I feel attacked.
And then be able to go chase people down to get what you need. It's really hard. So as a spectator this weekend, I was able to see how much easier that made it.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, Wayne's got his hands full, but he made some key he pointed out some key things this weekend for me. So he's invaluable at every event he goes to as well. So
he just needed some help. Being able to get the 2 guys who speak the same language talking to each other about the problem. So like Jared going to Wayne and saying, hey, I'm seeing this, and I think it, their conversation takes 5 seconds, and it would take 10 minutes communicating that from us to him. So the whole thing's just a little bit easier to deal with.
Maybe. What's wild is I'm exhausted from this weekend, and I don't even drink.
I slept 10 hours.
I can't. Overall, I got second. I got second place in my class. So overall, I can't complain.
Yeah, it's those weekends are go go go. There's really no time for relaxing, and it's like everybody wants to go out at night and go to turbos or whatever. But at the end of the day, I just want to go to bed, get up early, hit it again the next day because you don't have a whole lot of time
at turbos. Do you know how long it took to get our food?
Oh yeah.
I mean, like an hour and a half, no joke.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's cool, right? Like everybody's hanging out, talking cars anyway. But sure. My son and I were hanging out with Jeff, and so I mean, it was good company and stuff. And then Kong and Jared showed up a little bit later. But yeah, it made for a lot later night than I
Mm-hmm.
thought we were gonna have.
Well, Todd and I were planning on coming out, and then we got back to the RV park, and we were like, "Boy, this is really nice here. Maybe we'll just stay."
So we ate, watched the hockey game, and I don't know. I was asleep by 9 o'clock, I think, on Saturday.
Yeah, you were like, "You know what? I'm really tired. I'm just gonna go lay down for a minute." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's the end of that." And then I was watching the third period of the hockey game, and then I was just out, dude. I fell asleep before it was over.
Well, you know, it was hard waking up on Saturday morning with that rain, man.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know what it is, but I find rainy Saturday mornings like the most relaxing thing on the planet. It's like
Mhm.
Well,
little bit of
sure, but not
background
after
white
you've
noise.
driven several hundred miles and spent a lot of money to be there and race, and that was it turned out okay. I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah, my criteria was different than that.
that's
case.
true. That's true.
So weird though. Day 1, 0 wind, you know, day 2,
Yeah.
what, a 15-mile-an-hour headwind and hot.
And humid, and that was one thing is, you make changes to your car, and then you have these certain expectations in your head, and you go, and it doesn't do it, or maybe it doesn't do it quite the way you think, and so there is a little comfort when everyone seemed to be struggling
Mm.
in at some level. I mean, there were a lot of cars there that people were frustrated with.
I think everybody gets caught up in their imaginary cars in their mind, right? And it's like, okay, so if everything is perfect, car's going to do this. And then everybody shows up and says, oh, well, it's not perfect and it's not doing that. And then they get upset. And yeah, I mean, success is a reasonable goal. But you got to look at the larger picture because, we've talked about this before too, which is that if everybody's cars worked the way they thought they were going to work when they showed up, every record would fall every race.
I'm feeling attacked.
No, not really. I mean, take a look at Juan. Juan's a great example. His 991 was running gangbusters, and we thought for sure had the 991 turbo record in the bag, and did not.
Yeah. His
Three-
transmission was shifting weird all weekend, and then
3-4 miles an hour short, with 10 pounds of boost left to go, and broke the transmission. So, I mean, that luckily Juan, had a spare already, not with him, but at least he was already prepared for that eventuality.
Yeah, we had some. Yeah, I mean, with Juan and Taylor and I, we made a good strong showing for the Porsches for sure. We were looking to get some points. Got some points. Got on the board. Got on the board. I don't feel such a peasant anymore.
Yeah, how many points? So we looked at the points guide online, and it said 10 points for first, 8 points for second. I don't remember the rest. But then the points got posted today, and it looks like he's giving out 8 points for first and 5 points for second, which doesn't really matter, as long as it's consistent.
But is he giving points for making it to sections, like between the qualified and the semifinals and the finals?
Yeah,
Because I only placed one day and I got 8 points.
Yeah, so did you get first or second?
Second.
So you got second. Todd got second. Oh, but see, the thing is I didn't see anybody that got 10 points, which would have been first. So maybe they weren't registered for the season points lead. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I guess I kind of lost track of that after I missed Hondo, and then I won't be at Indy. So,
but Dallas Performance did really well.
Mhm.
Sijin's Black Gallardo ran 2:30 point something, which was the fastest of the weekend. And then, of course, you see people online. They're like, man, 2:30, geez. If the real people had been out there, it would have been a lot, that 2:30 would have looked slow. And it's like, guys, the real people were out there. Like the Calvo General was there. Like, people don't understand. I mean, the only way you're going to break records is if the conditions are perfect and your car is perfect. And even like the UGR team that comes out that has 8 guys covering one car, and they spent 2 weeks prepping it, right? And then they brought it out in a semi truck, and huge race team supporting it, and they don't break records every time. I don't know, expectations and reality, right?
Yeah,
that kind of got on my nerves. But Sijin did run the 230. He got the first 230 jacket. I thought that was cool. I've been following that car for a long time. I mean, I've seen it in the DFW area, at Dallas Performance, and then it's been at Trey's shop for a while after he left Dallas Performance. And of course, Wayne's been tuning it the entire time. He was going to be at TX2K, but his air-to-water intercooler broke and started dumping water into the engine, which is not fun.
Ooh.
Did not hydrolock it. They got it shut down quick. Didn't hurt the engine, but it was, obviously not a good time was had by all. But I did the pull before that, before they had really tried to turn up the boost, it made 1750. So I mean, that's a 2,000 plus horsepower car. I don't know what the numbers are, but
2,500 at least, right?
Somewhere in that range, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
And then he won the Super Roll. He lost to a Huracan. Ran the same speed as the Huracan, but lost to the Huracan because it's roll race, right? But the Huracan broke its block in half and was dumping oil out.
Oh,
so he went on, and really those were the two fastest cars, I think, in the Super Roll.
mm-hmm.
So he got that trophy, and then he also won the all-wheel drive class. So he ended up with 3 trophies. There's a picture of him with 3 trophies. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
great.
that picture with him and Wayne and Trey and everything with all the trophies, that's pretty cool.
And Todd was in the Super Roll.
I was in the Super Roll.
I mean, I guess technically I was too.
Were you?
As a passenger.
Oh,
yes, you were both.
He
in
was
the
my
Super Roll.
flagger. Yeah. So the Super Roll. So I got a bye in the first round. So advanced, and then got lined up with Frank in the R8 beadlocks, fast car, and the whole premise was to get in between the cones. There were several cones kind of actually I think midway down the run when we roll out to 60 miles an hour, and Taylor's job was to count with the arm 1 2 3 within the cones, and I think the cones were, I don't know, they could have been 100 yards long.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Something like once we got to them, they came and went quick, right?
Yes, they did.
So Taylor's job was to go 1 2 3 within those cones, and so the first attempt, I heard Frank on the anti-lag, and so whenever I hear anti-lag, I just go 1 2 3. So I left, So I left, and it appeared early. So I'm like, yeah, that's cool. So he was like, you want to rerun? I'm like, yeah, no problem.
It appeared early.
It appeared early. And so
that's what they said. That's what others said.
So 2 people came to me that were watching that very closely because I was in our pit area, right?
Uh-huh.
And they both told me that they thought it looked like a clean enough start for a roll race.
The first run of ours, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And one of them working is I don't want to name names, but works for the event. Right.
Oh.
So I was like, that's interesting because Todd said he jumped, and it wasn't purposeful, but it happens. So you were totally good with running again, but I thought that was interesting that
well, this, true to form, right? The car ran great the first run. And then when we did the second run, we had a very clean start. And as soon as I leave in second, shifted to third, everything was good. As soon as I shifted to fourth, I guess the boost hose popped off again. So I just lost all boost, and he just blasted right around me. So it was unfortunate. Because I think it would have been a good race. We both make the same amount of power, I think. So
I think Todd would have had him. I mean,
Yeah.
not by like a ton, right? But before that, I didn't see him in the corner of my eye pulling. I didn't see him gaining on you at all.
In that first race, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
So, yeah, it was fun. Look, Steve put the motor in the day before we left, actually. We got to Horsepower Lounge on Thursday, and John Bray was there, the engine builder, with Wayne and Jamo and the guys. And John replaced my brake and oil, and he also put a new throttle body on because we're having throttle body issues on the dyno the day Steve put the engine in. So put on a new throttle body, and then we drove to Kansas, and we had no idea what to expect. So on the first run, first gear no problem, second gear no problem, third gear, car shuts down, turns off, limp modes, and I was able to restart it while it was continuing down the track, and drove it back, and it kept stalling, kept turning off. I'm like, I don't know what the problem was. And so I asked Steve, I said, hey, how much fuel's in it? He's like, I don't know. Because my, the Porsche fuel gauge, not really responsible for anything. So it was showing empty anyway. So we always know that, just to keep track of how much fuel's in it.
Yeah, for the rest of everybody, the way the fuel tank in these cars work, it only measures it via a float for the first half tank. And if you're below half a tank, it uses a computer calculation based on injector pulse width to figure out how much fuel has been used, and then it moves the needle down that way.
And I've got to think that it's only measuring 6 injectors pulse width.
I only have 6.
Yeah, you know,
Oh, you do?
that's a really good point, Taylor. I hadn't thought about that at all.
Well, I'm just thinking on my car, right? It's direct fuel injection, and it's got 6. So it's like, oh yeah, this guy, he's driving it, 6 injectors. This is about how much fuel it has. Well, when those other 6 turn on, I mean, you empty the tank, right?
Well,
Like,
the
I
other
mean, you're
problem
dumping a
is-
lot of fuel.
The other problem is there is not an adjustment for fuel density. So gasoline versus ethanol will mess with it too. And in your case, yeah, you've got 2, like one set of high pressure and one set of low pressure injectors. Todd actually just has 6 injectors. What are they? The ID 2600s. And my car has 12, a set of 1700s and a set of 1300s. So we all have different stuff there for various reasons. And yeah, but the upshot of it is that the gauge does not work. You know, we know how much gas is in it by way of how much we put in it when we refill it.
So keep in mind, it was at Steve's for, a couple months. I gave him a couple of pails of fuel. I don't know how many he used. He put it on the dyno, ran it a few times. I bring it up to Horsepower Lounge, not really knowing what was in it. I grab some fuel, don't put it in, and then take that first run. And Jared took the log and he says, that was a fuel cut. I'm like, oh, that's bizarre. Let's see how much it'll take. So I ended up putting like 15 gallons in the tank. It was completely empty.
And it's a 16
gallon tank.
You still had 1/16.
I had a gallon left. Yeah. So filled it up, went back out. That was just on a, the wastegate map or something like that. And ran a 187. I'm like, oh, okay. She's running good. And so Jared took the log. And I mean, this is just a weekend of these little things. He took the log. He's like, okay, let me make some adjustments and move it up to map 3. I went out and ran a 185 or something very similar. I'm like, man, it didn't feel any faster. He's like, did you change the map? Oh, no, didn't do that. So I went out on the same map, ran the same speed. And then, he's like, well, why don't you go ahead and change it to map? So I changed the map and ran the third run, ran a 197. So I knew it was working.
This is an interesting point because a lot of people, I could name some names, it'd be hilarious, but a lot of people just drive their cars until the engine shuts off, right? Or almost shuts off. That's when you're out of gas. But the way the fuel systems in our cars work, you've got a fuel pump, right? And then you've got a fuel pressure regulator, and you've got a bunch of lines, and depending on how things are going, some of us have like a intermediate tank. They call it a surge tank. But the upshot of it is that you're running your fuel system. The fuel in your lines goes to say 43 psi roughly as a base. Maybe it goes to a little bit higher. Maybe it's 60 psi base. And you have to be able to have enough fuel in the tank and in the system to keep that entire system pressurized to that 60 psi. And then as boost comes into the equation, now you've got positive pressure in the intake manifold. So in order to maintain the same pressure in the fuel system, the fuel system pressure has to rise along with it. So if you're going to run 20 pounds of boost, your 60 psi of fuel pressure has to go up to 80 psi just to match that 20 psi that's in the intake manifold. So the pressure differential between the two is the same. Because if you don't raise the fuel pressure to go along with the intake manifold pressure, you only end up with plus 40 psi, and in the same amount of time, you don't inject the same amount of fuel because you're effectively only working with that lower amount of pressure. So, we really can't run these cars at full power unless we have at least a quarter tank.
Well, and then also the G forces that they're pulling as they're going down the track slosh the fuel around, and then you got to make sure you have enough fuel to cover it. And that's one benefit to the surge tank too, is you've got that fuel that's not as sloshy. I think that's a technical term.
Yeah.
Less sloshy.
Yeah. So, in Taylor's car, and I think Todd's car too. Mine's the only one. Well, mine is going to have it later this season. But, the fuel in the tank can get pushed to the back of the tank, and then the pump can't pick it up anymore. So if you have the tank at like half to a quarter, then it fills basically a cylindrical container called a surge tank that the actual like main fuel pump is in, and then it pressurizes the rest of the fuel system from that. And just because of the size, the volume, and the density of it, you keep that mostly full all the time, and the pump is actually submerged in fuel all the time, so you never really have to worry about a particular pickup. Taylor's got the direct injection car. So he has both fuels, a high pressure and a low pressure fuel system at the same time, and it operates on the same principle, because the high pressure fuel system is instead of injecting fuel into the intake manifold runners just before the head, it's actually injecting fuel directly into the cylinder, and you have a differential pressure problem there. But instead of trying to, raise your fuel pressure by 20 or 30 or 40 psi, however much boost you're running, it's raising it, 1,000 psi to overcome the pressure in the actual cylinder itself. And it's way more efficient. That's why later model cars do that, because you lose quite a lot. Injecting it into the intake manifold, running it through the head, and then eventually ending up in the cylinder. It's not nearly as efficient to do it that way, but that's the way it had been done for a really long time. Up until EPA standards forcing everybody to get much better gas mileage and emissions and everything else. So they had to find a new way to do it. And it's great, except for when you try to make 1,500 horsepower, and the high pressure fuel pumps, they operate at such high pressures, and they're such precision pieces of equipment compared to a lot of other things on the car anyway. Getting an aftermarket high pressure fuel pump and system is really not all that feasible. People have tried and people have failed.
There's not a lot of stuff out there. I mean, some of the domestic cars, there is a little bit of aftermarket available, but even then, it's not a lot.
Yeah, AMS has a high pressure fuel pump replacement for the Infinities. What are they like? They're like the old 350 and 370Zs, but they've turbocharged them, and now they're like G50s or something like that. And you can buy one of those, but that high pressure fuel pump's $1,500 or $2,000.
Yeah, and like when I had my Raptor, I mean, my Raptor was high pressure and low pressure. They have the direct injectors in the cylinders, and then they've got it in the manifold too. So you kind of could do either one. You could put bigger low pressure injectors in it and a bigger pump that way. Or on mine, when I went big turbo E85, I did the upgraded high pressure fuel pump, and I want to say that company was XDI or something. They make some for the domestic stuff, but they are expensive as far as fuel pumps go.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were talking about me.
Oh yeah. Todd,
Todd,
you ran a 197.
Yeah. Wayne said, "Hey, we should check the filter because we may have brought up some gunk." Sure enough, that T1 filter element was completely jammed up, and so Trey, my buddy Trey, took out that filter, and we fortunately had a couple new ones in the trailer, so we slapped a new one on, and we finished the rest of the day. I was getting this weird boost cut in 6th gear. The hose popped off on the second to the last run. Well, we didn't know it did, but I lost boost, then ran back out, and it did it again, and this time the whole clamp came off.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so John was like, "Man, there's no clamp. I don't know what you're going to do." I'm like, "Well, maybe they found it." So I went over to Nicene was in the car with Jason, and Jason was on the phone. I said, "Hey, I'm looking for a part." She's like, "What are you looking for?" I said, "A clamp." And then Jason pulls my clamp out of the door of this car. He's like, "Hey, here you go." They had found it like at, I don't know, 2,400 feet down the runway.
Maybe for the YouTube visitors, we could show the picture of that.
Yeah, it was shaped of a football.
But Steve mentioned that it wasn't your clamp because your clamp was round.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that wasn't.
That's not Todd's. That is definitely not TNS.
Todd's was round. That was before it got run over by 8 race cars.
Right. But unfortunately, on Saturday, I didn't qualify because Blake was there, ran like a 2:03 in his Viper, and then there was Sandy in the Gallardo. He was running like 2:13. So I got 3rd place on Saturday. So I didn't
Isn't
even
that
qualify.
Interesting? The 2,000 horsepower Gallardo runs 2:13.
Because what Sijin's car is 2,000 as well, right? But this Sandy's car is a 6-speed, so it's really not going to run as fast as an E-gear or a sequential, right?
Yeah, I don't know if Sijin's is sequential or the E-gear. That's a good question. But either one will probably be quicker than a manual unless you've got a crazed demon driving it.
So then Sunday, we went back out, took advantage of that good weather, and ran a 200.9 on the draggy. It showed a 199 on Jason's timing gear, but I'm going to go with 200. So
That's what I'd do.
yeah, but then we developed some kind of little oil leak, so we were chasing that all weekend, and I did end up in second place of the manual class. I got some points. I got 8 points for the weekend, so that's a start. I got 5 more racing days left, 3 in Indy and 2 in Abilene.
Yeah, I was looking at. I saw Jason posted the standings. We should show that. And Taylor clipped them out and put them in our chat somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. I can put them in.
Am I supposed to tell you about my runs? Is that pertinent?
We don't.
I can take you on my roller coaster of emotions.
All right, I got to get my glasses on for this. So here are the manual class leaders, points leaders. We've got Blake Weaver, first place, total of 21 points. Sandy Murray in second place with a total of 11 points. And then in third place, tied for third place, is Bobby Weege in a Corvette and me with 8 points. So that's the top 3 in manual.
Yeah, I've run Bobby before several times.
Yeah.
And, he's a cool dude.
So Taylor, you are in ethanol.
Ethanol. Yep.
Yeah, the situation actually looks pretty good for you in ethanol.
Ethanol's a funny class.
Jaddy kind of cleaned house there this weekend.
Yeah, Jaddy. Speaking of Jaddy, turns out Jaddy Gill is a fan of the show.
Shout out,
Jaddy.
Blew us all away.
Yeah. So it was good to catch up with him.
I lost to a fan. That's the best way to do this, right? Like,
how
we put our fans first. That's just.
I'm a fan of his. I was watching him
he's
on the Road Kings.
Yeah, he's a Road King star with Giddy and the other guy.
Look,
Prestige.
I lost to a 3,300 horsepower turbo Viper. I shouldn't feel bad about that.
Well,
don't say any. That's all that needs to be said. We just leave it at that. No, I'll tell you how, just real quick, how my weekend went. We went out there, did a low boost map 2 pass. I had my son with me, so we strapped him in. I took the extra time, installed the passenger harness, everything. So that was fun, right? Ran a 188, my first pass, low boost. I was pretty pleased with that. We spent a lot of time tuning and getting through some issues, and we thought, and going into this, I knew I had an issue with my car that I was given 3 options to try to address it. I chose one. We all knew that it might not work. Had hoped that it wouldn't have been quite as confirmed that it didn't work. Second pass, we turn it up, right? Turn it up to map 3, go out running 195. I'm like, hey, you know what? This is looking good for me. This is looking good. Went out, cranked it up a little bit. Jared was looking at the map 4 that I had in there. He goes, I'm going to take a little boost out for this run, just a little bit. And I was like, all right, cool. Went out, ran like a 187. And I was like, what happened? I lost 8 miles an hour. And that's when kind of my life fell apart.
It was not a good day.
It was not. And honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know if I even ran anymore that day. I was pretty frustrated because I don't like to go backwards. I don't always need to go, 14 steps forward, but man,
you were so angry. I was trying to hide all the flammable stuff because I could have sworn you were going to light it on fire and leave.
Now, you know what? I asked my son, I was like, how angry am I on a scale from 1 to 10? He goes, I don't know, like a 2.
What?
Wow.
So I was frustrated. It's because from Abilene to now, we made a lot of changes that should have netted in at least, and I know weather needs to be perfect, right? But it should have been similar.
Should have been better than it was.
Yeah. It should have been better. So Sunday we go out and we took advantage of the little bit nicer weather in the morning. But even so, it was only like a 188 run. So then we started banging our heads together with Wayne and Jared, and we decided the couple things we did to address my problem, we would pull those out and go back to Abilene tune. And we did, and I was able to muster up a 191, which wasn't terrible considering our 15, 20 mile an hour headwinds, right? Like that put me on par basically with Saturday, maybe even a little bit better, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, but still not Abilene level, which is okay because it was humid and hot, but at least I was like, okay, we have a game plan. And then I realized that I don't know if I was 3rd or 4th in qualifying rounds. So I made it to the semifinals, and then in the semifinals, I had Jaddy and what was the other guy's name? Julian in his, was it a Performante?
He's got a Huracan here listed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Ambassador.
It was a Huracan. Yeah. So he had me beat. So we decided we'd turn it up a little bit more, and I was able to go out and I think I ran a 188 or 189. Maybe it was a 188 that got me into the qualifying, and Julian was just barely behind me for that second place spot that advances to the finals. Bless his heart, he was trying, man, but he was hot lapping that car. And every time he'd run, it would go a little slower. I was back in the pits. I mean, I had my intercooler iced up. I had my gear on. I was ready to go at the last minute, because we get down to like 15 minutes before cutoff on qualifying, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is he gonna squeak me out? And I'm gonna get booted out. And I didn't. And then I advanced to the finals, and I kind of knew, like, Jaddy and I went over and we were talking to some of the event people, and they were giving us a hard time because we were being so nice to each other. And we decided we'd run separately instead of a head-to-head race, because that Viper had already come off the track earlier that day. So I didn't want to be a casualty of that, and he didn't want me to be. So he ended up running like a 214, and my second place run was a 187. That's not a great mile per hour for second place, but everyone was slowing down at that point, it seemed like.
It was getting hot.
Yeah. The track was going away, so to speak.
So
for those playing the follow along at home game, the way that it works is you run in the morning for, like, they call it quarterfinal, and it's from race open until lunch, and then after lunch at 1 they start up and they do semifinal, and they take, after the semifinals are over, they narrow it down to 2 cars. So from, like, say from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
yeah, I think it was 3.
Yeah. And so the reason Taylor had to stand by and wait to see if that Huracan was going to go faster than him was if he, like, waited until 2:57 p.m. and went out and ran faster than Taylor. Taylor needed to get back up there and then try to, get one shot at beating that time, because only the top 2 speeds were going to go on to the final after that time.
And you have to make your run before the time closes. It's not if you're in the grid and you don't run, it doesn't count. Now, there was an exception on, I think, Sunday, when that big tire Camaro went off.
Yeah, they had a track shutdown, so they extended the time to let a few people run because the track wasn't available to make a run.
Didn't they extend it on Saturday too because of the weather? Or did
Well,
they not? I don't. I was
delay.
frustrated. I wasn't even paying attention.
They can delay when they start, but the problem is they have these servers set up on times.
Oh.
And so they have to actually go in and make adjustments within their servers to change the cutoff times. It's not an easy thing for them to do, apparently. So.
Yeah, the tabulation of it's automatic, so
Mhm.
and they had to go tweak some stuff.
But yeah, so I remember I was sitting there. I was in the grid 30 minutes before 3 o'clock. So I had 30 minutes to make this run. Plenty of time. There was maybe 3 cars in front of me. Well, one GTR blew up and oiled the track. So we waited for that to be cleared. And now it was like, I don't know, it was 2:45. I'm like, okay. And then they lined up this big tire Gen 2 Camaro and it went off the track. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to get this qualifying in. So Jason made an announcement and they delayed qualifying to 3:45. So I was able to make, and thank God, because I was able to run a 199 on that qualifying pass. So I was able to qualify for the finals.
So we both lost to Vipers.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, not the superior form of transportation.
Oh crap, that's coming back to bite us.
Oh
Dang.
my God.
I mean, look, man, flat 6 and a V10. It's just there's going to be some drawbacks there.
It's fun to compete, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there's not much we can do. I mean, Calvo's out there building a 9-liter engine.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
look, I mean, it was good to see Calvo, Antonio, and his group out there. Blake was out there. Jaddy was out there. Colin, I saw Colin Murphy. He handed me a beer that was this beer out of Hawaii. I still can't remember what it was. I need to find out what it was. That their camp was fun. Hung out with them for a little bit. It's good to see them. It's good to see everybody. I love going to these events and seeing all these people.
Yeah, it's fun.
You do have to be careful with scooters.
Oh, good old Jeff Naughton. Hey, I tell you what, that guy, That guy's he's poor Jeff.
Poor Jeff.
Poor Jeff.
We should talk about that because Jeff is like, he's on my short list of nicest guys on the planet.
Yeah,
I know,
he's
right?
good people.
And he's like, he's Kansas nice, he's real laid back, everything's cool. But his car did not do what we were hoping it was gonna do.
Yeah.
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 And he ended up pulling the plugs, and I think it was 4, 5, or 6, maybe it was cylinder 6. He melted the grounding strap on the plug. I don't know how to explain that to people that don't know what it looks like, but there's like a little armature that comes off of a plug, and then there's a gap between that and the electrode. And then when people are gapping plugs, that's what that means. That little strap that comes around, it's a metal strap, and you set the gap between that and the electrode in the center of the plug, on the tip of the plug. And he literally melted the side of the strap. So something was going not so great in his combustion. He thinks maybe it was a clogged fuel injector, which would make some sense because if one of the injectors wasn't flowing correctly, that cylinder would be running lean and less fuel. It's kind of counterintuitive, but when you're around that ratio of air to fuel, if you end up with less fuel, it actually burns hotter than if you have more fuel, because more fuel kind of cools it down a bit more. So it ran hot in that cylinder. The ECU yanked the ignition timing back. I think he said 7 degrees, which is a lot. And
I guess as
like
far as
that,
problems, a leaky injector is one of the better ones for him to have.
yeah, I don't think he hurt the engine because it ran perfectly at idle anyway. But yeah, he's got to figure out why it was doing that.
Good move parking it up.
Yeah. You don't want to keep when you know there's a problem like that and you don't know what you don't know. You just got to park it. I mean, it's either
Todd's advice is never lift, but
well, I turn around and I see his car, like the whole top of the car is missing, and there's parts on the ground. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not good.
He pulled off his manifold and everything.
But I tell you what, non-racing Jeff is really helpful.
Well, he's a really good mechanic.
He had fuel, and then he went with you, Dan, to O'Reilly to get me a plug wire kit.
Yep.
And because we had to make a whole new plug wire. So he
he did the driving. I just wanted to make sure he didn't end up getting a bill. So I was like, I'll ride with you. I'm not really qualified to drive there right now, but I'll ride with you, and you can pick out the parts and I'll pay for them. This is my job. So.
Yeah, which reminds me, I need to Venmo you some money.
Well,
so yeah, we made a plug. I forgot about that. John made a plug wire on
the
site.
royal John. Yeah, he made a plug wire, and it kind of worked, at least for a little while.
I think I made
really sure.
Well, I did 3 passes on it, I guess. I think. Yeah. 2 roll races in the finals with Blake. I lost boost again. I don't know why it keeps blowing that hose off, but I ran a 182. So I was down like 20 miles an hour on that pull. But when you have no boost in 6th, that's not going to help. That is not.
We all start shaking our heads at the same time. No,
not having 5th gear is not good either. So we started talking about it, but Juan in his 991, he's coming for the record. In fact, Juan texted me today, sent me a picture of his transmission on a pallet shipping to Texas. So the spare transmission is going in his 991, and he's going to be going for it in Indy.
What is the record?
213 point something.
Oh, is it Dave Briggs?
It's higher than that. I thought Dave got a 215.
I want to say he was in the 215-ish.
So why are they saying that's the record? This is something we should look into.
213, I think, is the 997.2 record.
But Juan's car is a 991.
991.
Yeah, I don't know. I when the group chat was going back and forth about that, I was looking and I was like, I'm not coming up with the same number when I calculate kilometers to mile per hour. I don't know.
Either we don't know something or they don't know something. So, because you're right. Because how fast does Dave Briggs go? That's a really good point.
I thought he had a 215.
Maybe faster than that. I mean, didn't he go? Well, Dave Briggs, he went 170 in the quarter.
Or 216 maybe?
And interestingly enough, Juan went 170 in the quarter.
I'll tell you though, did you see Juan's in-car videos?
Yeah.
It's got to be worth some mile per hour there. When it goes
skipping,
1,
this is where we're going to
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
5, 6. Yeah, like just 5. No, 6.
Yeah. So I mean, And his car did run. He picked up a good chunk of speed from Abilene.
Yeah.
So that was cool to see.
They sorted it out, but then it broke. So I don't know what broke it, but the PDK tuning not being right in those things is broken transmission time. I mean, at least with the manual trans, we've got control of the lever with our arms. But in the PDK, if you don't have it right, and you could royally break something doing bad things with the shifting, like if you shift it while both clutches are engaged, or there's a number of ways you can mess it up.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword for sure. When your transmission, manual transmission, you're never stuck in a gear, or if you are, there's another gear you can probably use too. But when a PDK says you're locked into this gear, buddy, you are in fact locked into that gear.
Well, I mean, that's why it does it, right? Because it knows, it has figured out by way of sensors and programming that something is wrong. And so it knows that there's a possibility that if it tries to shift, it could end up munching itself, or it believes that could be the case. So, I mean, it's a protective mechanism. It's a good thing to have.
Yeah, but isn't it only protective up until the point that a tuner gets in and changes where the protections are?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it in this case, it seems to me like it's really not protecting itself. It just thinks that it is.
Yeah, so that's I watch the 991s with great intrigue because I'm more closely related to one of those than your cars.
Well, what's funny is we have several records, right? So we have a 991 record. I would imagine that's just going to stay as one record, right? All 991s, right?
You would think.
Probably.
Okay. And then Taylor's 9972 PDK has a record.
Yep. And there would be a 6-speed record for it too, I suppose, because there is a rare 6-speed variant of it.
There is, but is anybody modifying those?
Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen one.
So then we have a 996 turbo record, which would only be a manual, right? Oh well, actually,
it could be a
sequential.
It's gonna break.
And then we have a 997 sequential record and a 997 manual record and a 997 rear wheel manual record.
Oh my gosh! Well,
now we sound like Corvettes and one builds.
This is the problem of the internet and records. It's like, well, guys, I happen to hold the 997.1 with carbon seats and 3-passenger record on a Tuesday.
I have the fastest car at 76 degrees.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, well, I know you beat me, but I'm gonna find something different, and I'm the fastest one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. It goes from important delineations between versions of the car to it gets ridiculous because and it's funny, I hate to say it, but a lot of times it's the darn Mopar guys.
Right. Or the GTR guys stock
or
location.
The GTR guys will do it.
Stock location, whatever that means.
Well, yeah.
I don't think I'm a Mopar guy. I mean,
I was thinking more like the Hellcats and the Challengers. It's definitely a thing with the GTRs because, like Todd said, they have stock location and non-stock location records, and basically what that means is the headers, right? So if the turbos are in the stock location on stock style headers, or if they go to like front-mounted turbos or whatever. Like if you look at Jeff's car, the turbochargers, like you can't get to them with the engine in the car. Like you can't really even see them.
They're actually mounted to the headers, right?
Yeah, they're like the header, like a stock GTR turbine housing and header are like one piece, I think.
Oh wow.
It's like the stock N54 BMWs.
They're like turbo folds or something. I can't remember what they call them. They're weird.
Yeah, the turbine housing is part of the manifold.
Yeah.
That's enough about GTRs.
I went to T1 probably in 2007, 2008, and Tony took me for a ride in his GTR, and that was the end of my Evo right there. It's like, man, this isn't getting it done.
It was a pleasure to be parked near Kong Chang. He was very helpful. He had a lot of fuel that we were able, because we couldn't find the Ignite guy. I couldn't find him anywhere. So
yeah, I don't know what happened there.
On your scooter, Todd.
Oh yeah,
he went all the way down towards the starting line almost, made a U-turn, came back, and then he drove off and he was going by the airplanes that were parked on the
What?
near the
I
I don't
just
know where he was
couldn't
going.
I couldn't decide if you're a vendor, right? And your goal is to sell whatever you bring
Mm-hmm.
and people are there to buy it. I don't know why the communication would stop. The only thing that made sense to me is maybe somebody came up and like bought whatever he had.
I bought it all. Yeah.
And then he was like, man, I gotta bounce now because now I don't have
Mhm.
anything for the other people.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's an explanation for it, but I can unequivocally say, I mean, we were looking for him, other people were looking for him. Whatever it is that he was doing was not successful in the
Yeah.
mission of supplying fuel to the racers. It did
Yeah.
not work.
So thanks to Kong, I was able to get a 5.7 gallons from him. And one time when the boost hose popped off and the clamp was completely lost, I couldn't even find it. So he had like 3 buckets of hose clamps, and I grabbed one out of. He said, "Hey, plenty of hose clamps. Go grab one." So he bailed me out on the hose clamp front. Thanks, Kong.
The amount of people that are helpful out there is pretty cool.
Well, everybody realizes that where you're going to go. There's no race shop on
Yeah,
premise.
and
So
sorry, but O'Reilly's is typically not cutting it anymore.
yeah.
I was perturbed with Kong from previous races, and I gotta say, the guy was absolutely so nice that I just felt like an asshole being perturbed with him. So
He's a good guy. He didn't even have a car. He didn't register, so he was driving that BBI 997,
Which is kind of a cool it's a 997.2.
uh-huh.
And it's the 918 Spider Edition.
Uh-huh.
And I could be wrong, but I thought the only way you could buy those
and
if
you
you
would
bought
be
a
right.
918.
if you had a Spider on order or had bought one.
And you would be correct. Yes,
Yeah,
that is the case.
Oh.
I really like that lime green trim on that white car, which is kind of like
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
Yeah. So
wonder
what
if
was he?
he's,
What was he running in
selling that car? Right?
7164s.
And what was the top speed on that one?
Oh, I don't know, because he had a boost hose that was old and decrepit and popping off.
It was 180-ish. He had an intercooler pipe / boost hose that was blowing off, and they could not keep it on. They, did everything short of JB welded on, and it just
Hey, you know
wouldn't stay
what?
on.
One thing that I just thought of we should mention is people need to understand, right? Like these events push your car to extents that the shop before cannot duplicate. So you can have a car that works really well on a dyno and really well at the shop, and you bring it out to shift sector, like mine, for example, where on the dyno it was doing okay. You get it out and you get up in 5th and 6th gear, and that thing bucks and surges like it's coming undone. And then you got Jeff's car that was great on the road until he gets into 6th gear, and now it's
So
having
it gets
problems.
into like 150 miles an hour and 40 pounds of boost.
And BBI's car, right? Like extended times in boost, or that's when it's going to show you an intercooler hose that is maybe on its last leg that you didn't experience on your quick little burst onto the freeway.
Yeah, I mean, somebody goes and they run a quarter mile, right? And they like, you got to ice your car down for 30-40 minutes to cool it back down again.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going twice as far, and we're going instead of 9 seconds or 8 seconds for these high power cars, you're going for 16 seconds.
Look, or it's the opposite. Like for my car, Steve couldn't get it to make a pull. I get to the event, I made pulls. I mean, I had some, issues of boost hose popping off and running out of gas and whatnot.
You did change the throttle body in between those two things.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We still have an intake issue, I think, but I think we're going to have to isolate the throttle body from the intake. But yeah, you can't, everybody's like, oh, we got to test and get sorted before the event. But where are you going to do that? You can't run 200 miles an hour on the highway. So, you have to go wide open throttle 1 through 6 gears to really have your full test. You just can't.
Yeah, I always chuckle when I see like news stories online about how, a guy got pulled over going 135 miles an hour on the freeway. And I'm like, whoo, boy. And, they're like, that's insanely fast, right? And I'm just there going, oh, boy. Oh, boy.
It's just, I don't condone it. But when you have a car that makes this much power, driving it on the street, it doesn't take much time to get into those highly illegal, dangerous speeds. I mean, it's like in the blink of I remember my very first car, very first day driving as a 16-year-old, I got it up to 100 miles an hour. But I swear it was like, all right, here we go. Here we go. Okay, 80. All right, 85.
Yeah.
And like eventually I felt like it was a really big effort to get there. And now
Put it in
Well-
perspective. When the cars go from 100 miles an hour to 150 miles an hour in 2-something seconds.
Yeah, 60 to 130, 3 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
right? So 60, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. There's
130.
130,
Mm-hmm.
and
Even
2
quicker to get to 150.
and 2.5 seconds to get from 100 to 150, maybe 2.2, 2.5. I mean, so you're just like, foot's on the floor, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. I mean, from
And
80
you're-
miles an hour, you're at 170, 160, like that.
Yep.
So you have to be really careful with these cars. Like you can't, it's counterproductive because you spend all this money to make your car fast. And then what ends up happening is it's so fast that you can't drive it on the street because you're in, major difficulty zones on speeds before you even know it.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't really drive our cars on the road. And if we do,
well, that's
You-
not
you'll
why I
just-
don't drive mine, but
you'll just see us, at least me anyway, you'll just see me puttering along, I go slow. So
except for that one time that we all met to go to Cars and Coffee and you missed the exit on the freeway. So as you drove by us, you put it in neutral and just revved it. And we were like, what the?
yeah, I did do that. Yeah.
So what? Okay, so let's recap. Unfortunately, Taylor's not going to Indy, so Dan still has to have a running car, but you have all your parts now.
Well, I do and I don't and I do.
Yeah.
So in our last endeavor, one of the cam housings, I didn't actually open this one. So I noticed it when I was holding it up like this.
Mm-hmm.
You see how there's half a circle there?
Yeah.
And then there's like a dark spot where it goes in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another half to that circle. And I noticed it kind of in the back of my mind while we were talking, and I was like, oh, it's in the box. Oh, it's around. No, it wasn't in the box. It was nowhere to be found. And so not only was that cap missing, but all of the other cam caps were missing. So it's a major bummer because this entire assembly and those caps are basically drilled in so much of a way in a perfectly straight line with those caps on there. So the only caps that are useful for this housing here are the original caps that came with, and they're matched. Like for bank 1 and bank 2, you can't like move the caps around. They need to go exactly where they were supposed to be, otherwise essentially the bearing surfaces aren't true.
Wow.
So I emailed the guy or that had sent it to me, and sure enough, a few days later he sent out my cam caps.
So did you get them all though?
Well, I believe so, yes.
Okay.
So you can see, if I can get it to focus, I did earlier.
Yeah,
There's
I
the
think
number 6 etched into this
Oh
one.
yeah.
Okay.
Numbered.
Okay.
Yeah, see how it's numbered right there?
Yeah.
And I mean, they're hand numbered, interestingly enough, too. So I'm not sure why that is, but
Because they're probably not numbered from the factory, and they're numbered when they take them apart.
yeah, when they
That's
when they
what
do
I always did. I remember the first motor that I tore apart and put back together was that old Cadillac. I guess not. Well, it's old now. The North Star that was overhead cam, and we would stamp into the side of the cam saddle there the numbers so that we put them back in the right order.
Yeah, so I don't know if the race team did it or if Porsche did it when they finished
Yeah, maybe.
the housing itself or what. But so I got those, and then because these are the ones that like actually go over the middle of and far end of the cam, and then the near end of the cam by the cam sprocket, there's those larger semicircles, and I got those too. They're sitting behind me. In theory, I have everything now.
All right. So
you know,
you
I
just gotta
haven't-
get that to John.
I haven't gone. I'm gonna open this up, clean it up, match up the cam caps, just kind of finger tighten these bolts down, onto the right spots. Do my due diligence before I send John the parts, because I don't want him to have to have a better starting point. Seems like the polite thing to do, and that way I know in my mind that I've sent him everything and it's correct. But it's really strange. Weird things happen. So when did I order those cam housings from Porsche directly? with
February?
Steve? January or
It was
February?
a while ago, yeah.
So they actually showed up at Steve's shop today. Today being the day that my cam caps showed up for this other set.
But just
And-
one, right? Just one showed up with Steve?
Just
Or
one
set?
No, just one. Yeah, you're right. Just one cam housing showed up, and we ordered it for like $1,200, and they and I don't know. It's like Steve's on like a business account, right, or something.
Yeah.
So they shipped it to him. I mean, I don't think we've paid for it yet. Like it's like on Net 30 or something.
Uh-huh.
But the price is $4,500
Oh my God.
for the
Wow.
one. They raised it, by a factor of 3 or 4.
Maybe they're sending you 3.
Just for that one. So I mean, I'm 99. I mean, we can send it back because we didn't agree to pay that much for it. But it's like, what on earth? And then also, I found another source for these also today, and they have them.
Oh, I
right
saw
now.
that.
Are you going to reveal that source?
No, I
Okay.
am not. That is not my source to reveal.
Okay.
That's okay. I will. It's just kidding.
No, it's not. It's not my. Well, that's not my camel, as we used to say in Kuwait City. But yeah. So yeah, it's raining cam housings here, but by my
Feast
standards,
or famine?
it is.
All right. So timeline wise, we have 2 months before
Yeah.
Indy.
So my
I mean, that's
cam-
plenty of time, guys. Why don't you just wait until like, I don't know, the beginning of August?
Sure. Yeah.
My
You're gonna
cams
win.
are en route back to John. They've been modified as he modifies them. I have the cam housings. He has the short block in the process of being built. I might have an engine done, conservatively. I might have an engine done and shipped back in 30 days. Aggressively, I might have an engine done and shipped back in 2 weeks, but I bet you it's closer to 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually doubling the amount of time I think it should take and say 30 days.
Yeah.
So at that point, then Steve puts it back together. My turbos need to be rebuilt just because why not?
Oh, wow.
I'm just gonna have them inspected, really,
Sure.
more so than anything else.
When they don't have to replace very many parts, it's not that expensive to rebuild them. It's when you
Nah, it's not.
grenade a compressor wheel and a housing that it starts getting.
Tell us about it, Taylor.
In reality, I'm gonna get some new bearings, and
Hmm.
they're gonna reset all the tolerances in them, and lube them up and send them back. Then my fuel system stuff is going to get done. I'm going to a surge tank setup like you guys have, so I never ever have to stick my hand in a tank of ethanol again.
At first, it's not bad, and then it gets bad.
Then it gets
Your
like
skin turns white and crusty and dry, and it's not awesome.
yeah. Well, it could have been avoided had I worn a rubber glove, but I wanted to man style it, and then I cut my hand on
When
the
you
top.
man styled it and go, "Hey Taylor, can you come do this for me?"
Yes,
Oh,
my
man.
hand is too large. hands are
I
just
need
too
a
big.
dainty hand, man. So, but you know what, guys? There's a slight chance because Steve was telling me that this oil leak might be similar to what we had before. And if that's the case, he says might have to have a rebuild. So
Man,
hopefully on the
now it's sounding like a NASCAR team after every event.
every event. Yeah. So
hope
next
not for you, man.
episode, we'll find out what happens to my motor. All right, boys. The good wrap up.
Yes, I think we covered it all.
And that's a wrap. We will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in So You Think Your Car is Fast. And I'd like to say good night, Caroline. Thank you for listening to So You Think Your Car is Fast podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. Also want to thank Redenzo Radar, redenzo.com/BHT for discounts. Also want to thank Evo Spec Engine Development and Force Performance.
Oh, wait a minute. Who's number one?
Who's number one? That's
Who's
Black
number
Horse
one?
Turbo. I'm gonna leave number one on my car all year long.
It's never coming
I'm gonna
off.
put it, if I get another sticker for the next race, I'm just gonna put it next to it.